I've spent my whole life running from it. But it feels like everywhere I go, I see his face. I can't contain him, no matter what I do. I did a video for each film in the trilogy, but it wasn't enough. I did a review for every Cars short I could find, the 2 spin-offs set in the Cars universe, but still, it was never enough. I even did a satire review of a 1-minute Pixar short that a lot of you took seriously. But still, it's almost as if my whole career as a Cars enthusiast has led to this moment. It's time to go on the road. It's time for Cars on the Road. Ever since this series was announced 2 years ago, I've been mentally preparing for more Cars content. Seeing as Cars as a franchise is either acceptably good or insanely chaotically bad with no in-between, I went in with the expectation I would at the very least enjoy this fresh new Cars content. But after binging all 9 episodes, I realized I didn't need to mentally prepare because this crap is so freaking boring. I came in expecting comedy, but instead got basically nothing from the out-of-gas writers who quite clearly wanted nothing more than to capitalize on the success of the Cars franchise. But you know what? Let's go episode by episode to discuss what makes this show so lame. Hey, you should totally subscribe for more fun content like this. Okay, anyways, here's the video. The first episode introduces the backdrop for this series. Mater and McQueen are embarking on a cross-country road trip to attend Mater's sister's wedding. Throughout the trip, they make a bunch of stops and each stop ends up being an episode. In many ways, it reminds me of Mater's Tall Tales, especially since each episode is only like 7 minutes minus the credits. With potential like this, there's gotta be some wacky shenanigans all throughout the series, right? Right? So McQueen and Mater run into a dinosaur museum, and while the tour guide is talking, Mater just goes into a weird sleep trance where he actually envisions himself and McQueen as cavemen getting attacked by, as Mater would refer to them. What is he saying? And that's the end of the episode. Yeah, I don't know, man. That was kind of a weak beginning. Like, where were the jokes? Nothing about this was funny. In Mater's Tall Tales, at least it was funny from how absurd Mater's stories were and how confident Mater was in telling them like they were fact, but we don't get any comedy like that in this at all. It's just Mater's weird fever dream. Not entertaining and not funny. There was an opportunity to bring dinosaurs back from the dead at the end of the episode just for the laughs. Watch, this episode's gonna end with like one of the dinosaurs moving and it's gonna be like, oh look, they're still alive. But no, instead he just bumped into it and it just fell down. Like, if that dinosaur actually came alive and ate Mater, at least it would mimic the funniness of Mater's Tall Tales when McQueen doesn't believe Mater's stories, but then someone from the story passes by them confirming it's real. I don't know, I'm just a little upset they didn't take the bait. This is not the best way to start off this series. 4 out of 10. Hopefully the next ones aren't this boring. McQueen and Mater visit a haunted hotel, and during their stay, McQueen encounters a bunch of horror movie references that I'm sure the target audience of this show completely did not understand. And at the end of the episode, instead of it all just being a nightmare, it was revealed that it was the hotel employee pranking McQueen. Okay, again, that's it. Sorry, I think I missed the part where this episode was funny or interesting. Let me see my notes real quick. Oh wait, no, I missed nothing. 2 out of 10, Snore Fest. In this episode, McQueen calls this group of salt racers crackpots.
Well, what do we know about these crackpots?
And then Mater somehow breaks the sound barrier, which doesn't make any sense, but then again, nothing in the series does. Like the fact that Mater freaking dies in this episode, and he sees God? No, actually, he sees this car called the Speed Demon, who's like a legend to these crackpot salt racers. And according to the Cars Wikipedia, Speed Demon is not an actual physical character, but rather a figment of someone's mind that the salt racers will see if they exit their bodies after going too fast. Because, yeah, I guess that's what happened to Mater. He exited his body. I can't help but notice all the similarities between this episode and Soul. Like, honestly, this has to be the car equivalent of the moving Walkway to the Great Beyond in Soul. This is actually like Soul. You can't go back in, you need your Earth pass. It'd be funny if Mater like went to hell. That'd be so funny. Needless to say, this was actually a really funny episode.
Shall we be going?
What now? But who's gonna break it to light?
Well,
He'll figure it out.
I really wish every episode was at least sort of like this, but no, this is by far the best episode. 7 out of 10. Bigfoot in the Cars universe will be called Big Wheel, right? So in this episode, Mater and McQueen meet some listeners of the Joe Rogan podcast and go out into the woods looking for Bigfoot wheel. But instead, McQueen and Mater get captured by Ivy, a former monster truck.
I used to be a monster truck.
They strike a deal to be let free as long as McQueen and Mater help her scare the Joe Rogan bros out of the woods, so they dress up in the most believable looking alien costumes I've ever seen in my life to do just that. The episode ends with Ivy joining McQueen and Mater on the road trip, and no, Ivy does not take a shower like she desperately needs to. Honestly, I gotta admit the plot of this one was actually kinda interesting. It could've used a few more jokes, but it was definitely better than the first and second episodes by a long shot for at least having some stakes and being entertaining. 6 out of 10.
What a nice boat.
Thank God this episode starts with Ivy getting a car wash before they go to a circus. And we find out that McQueen is scared of clowns.
You're scared of clowns? Come on, they're just plain adorables, all.
They watch the circus show, and then Ivy stays with the circus because she has found her place. Dang, that was short-lived. This episode ended before I even felt like it started. I literally have nothing to say about this piece of mediocrity. 4 out of 10. Halfway through this series, a theme I'm starting to notice with these episodes is that they're filled with a lot of nothing. Just like how McQueen and Mater are crossing off the places they visit during the road trip, the writers are crossing off each episode before they put any heart, soul, or comedy into them. And because of it, I'm finding it to be a hard time to even write anything about the series. Like, how do I turn this 7-minute mediocre short that has nothing funny, crazy, or intense into a funny video script? Come on, Pixar, y'all are not making my job easy. Okay, I gotta admit the title of this episode was pretty comical to me when I first saw it. Trucks. It's the spin-off to Cars, but the second spin-off because they already made planes. But this episode is basically just the Cars version of Fantasia, which just kind of proves that they've most definitely run out of ideas. I will say though, when Mater goes to the Great Beyond again, and then like 2 seconds later starts driving down Rainbow Road, it starts to look at least visually appealing. Would have been nice if the whole episode was like that, but no, it was just the last minute of the episode. And the fact that they tried so hard to make the audience believe that this experience, or whatever the hell you call this drug trip of an episode, made Mater feel more like a real truck is just such a lousy way to skip writing any sort of interesting story with this setup. 1 out of 10. Yikes. B-movie. Wait. This episode is the pinnacle of missed opportunities. Instead of being a jab at DreamWorks, this episode is simply just McQueen and Mater waltzing onto a movie set. They literally had the most perfect setup for a fourth wall break joke about CGI where they could have acknowledged the fact that they are computer generated, but like somehow they did not take the bait, which just astounds me.
CGI stuff.
What's CGI?
Well, Mater, that's technical. It comes out of a computer.
Oh, come on. That was... dude, that was a perfect opportunity for a super meta joke. Be like, what's CGI? And then they just stare at each other. Anyways, after McQueen messed up his one line like 50 million different ways, Mater reveals himself to be insanely good at acting. Sure, I guess that makes sense. And of course, McQueen, being classic McQueen, immediately gets jealous of this.
I always thought I'd be the one who'd be good at this. What am I missing?
Why? Wait, but why? And Mater was just about to become president of the United States, but then they changed up the movie and wrote them out of the script. Because that's something that happens on that fast of a time span in real life. Ugh. Anyways, that episode was like a 3 out of 10. I don't know. I'm so freaking bored of this crap, man. Like, put some originality or spice or like anything that can make these episodes funny in it. I would genuinely rather watch Cars 2 than this boring crap, because at least I can think of a million reasons why it's so awful, and there's a million different things for me to laugh about with it. Hopefully these last 2 episodes aren't completely devoid of any life or entertainment. The beginning of this episode retells the tragic argument McQueen and Mater have.
Sounds in your sleep and your brain.
Well, your breath smells like a carpet fire.
I really hope they look into some couples counseling. Anyways, it doesn't take long for them to get car-napped by this gang who throws them into the lethal funnel to fight for the death. But in the middle of their fight, they stop because this car gang also happens to be at war with this other car gang for literally no reason.
You don't even remember what you're fighting about?
Not really, no.
Which is honestly a basis for a pretty funny resolution, but instead they fight and we literally do not see the resolution. It happens off screen. Like, there's just no imagination in any of these episodes, which is so frustrating. Honestly, just to spite this entire series, this episode is a 2 out of 10. I'm so upset with this series that I somehow had the gall to hype myself up over. Hopefully this last episode is of any worth. So one thing that returns to this episode from Mater and the Ghost Slide is that Mater starts twerking again. Once we get to Mater's place, we find out that Mater grew up in a mother-flipping mansion. What? Oh, and I guess Cruz is at the wedding too because she's related to the groom, which makes Mater and Cruz canonically related.
I'm gonna be Mater Ramirez.
So then we meet Mater's sister, Mato, who still has a rivalry with Mater, and I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty funny watching Mater try to hold back all his anger against her. You know, as if Mater's been through any anger management or something. So Mater and Mato do a bunch of challenges to prove who's better, and it ends with Cruz giving the two family therapy. After the wedding, Mater gives this cheesy speech where the writers attempt to shoehorn in some shallow message about how Mater and McQueen spending quality time together is important. Like, he attempts to justify the entire series in this one speech, even though there was like no overarching theme in any of these episodes at all. But honestly, that's to be expected with how lazy the writing of this series has been. It's kind of like Minions Rise of Gru, now that I think about it. Oh, also, they totally set up the possibility for a season 2 by saying that they're gonna take a road trip back to Radiator Springs. But with that, we conclude Cars on the Road with a 6 out of 10 episode. This series is the very definition of missed opportunity. There was no comedy, there were no interesting plots, there were no interesting life lessons, there was no chaos, there was no cool new characters, there was barely even any cameos from previous movies. There were, however, some interesting setups, they just did nothing with them. The closest thing I can compare the series to is the new Big Hero 6 series, which was a series of shorts just like this one, where each one had a similar premise of Baymax trying to help people. The episodes at the very least had some good comedy and even some good life lessons about the value of helping others. And the final episode had all the characters that were helped by Baymax band together to help Baymax using the lessons that he taught them. Meanwhile, this series was just road trip the series. Despite what the last episode tried to make you believe, there was barely an overarching story or theme or anything throughout the episodes. And honestly, I'm fine with that. This series doesn't have to have some significant theme, but at the very least, I'd like there to be some comedy, but every single opportunity they had for some laughs was just missed. And it's because the writers treated this series like a checkmark to cross off on a list, since there's a lot of demand for more Cars content. But without any flavor to it, it just doesn't feel like Cars content. I seriously would have taken anything over this. Like, if this series had more plot problems than Cars 2, or was more intensely chaotic than the Cars 2 shorts, and I declared this series to be the worst thing to happen to the entire Cars franchise, at least it would give me something to talk about. At least there would have been some sort of an attempt at making something significant. If you enjoy this series, I'm really happy for you, but I don't think I'm ever going to understand why. With the exception of 2 or 3 episodes that I thought were good at the very most, this series is just a bunch of mediocre nothingness. Please, Pixar, come back to this franchise when you have something to share, whether it be really good or really bad. Mediocrity simply has no place for this franchise. In spite of that, I hope you enjoyed this long-awaited video. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. I've been live streaming a bunch of Cars video games on my Twitch recently, so if that sounds like fun, I'd love for you to check them out. I plan on turning all of my experiences with these games into a video where I rank all of the Cars video games, so stay tuned for that. But until then, I'll see ya in Cartaceous Gardens.